This section of the topic is letting go of whatever is not your vision. And so, what I want you to consider is, first of all, before you look at the screen, and in fact, I'll pull back from the screen a second here and just focus on me for a second, not just because of my really cool shirt. I didn't make the shirt, so I can say the shirt's cool, right? I like the shirt. It's colorful. It's pretty. It wakes me up, and maybe it's blinding your eyes. But what I want you to think about is there's so much that we have sometimes that is not our vision. And when we're not at our best, I'll speak about me. When I'm not at my best, I focus on what I don't want to happen. I don't want this to happen. I don't want that to happen. I'm afraid this is going to happen. And I usually might not use the word afraid because I'm a male and in my mind, I'm a tough guy. And so I'm not afraid of anything and whatnot. But usually, if I'm talking about what I don't want to have happen, usually not so good things happen. And I'm not saying to scare people or anything. It's just, that's been my experience. My 3 worst investments, I know Rennie, you and I talked about this a little bit, all were based on some form of fear, either fear that I wouldn't make enough money or fear that I'd miss out on an event. That whole FOMO, fear of missing out, FOMO, if you ever heard of that, interestingly has the same letters as MOFO. Think about that one for a second. But anyway, so, just any of that fear stuff is stuff that gets in your way. And a lot of people are really stuck on what's not their vision. And so I work with a lot of different entrepreneurs. I've been a coach for over 20 years as an entrepreneur. And many of the entrepreneurs I work are in a stable field. I work with a lot of insurance agency owners. They come from a stable field. And insurance is an interesting field because, nobody really wants to have insurance until they have an accident. So nobody wants to pay their premiums. But if something happens, they want to say, yes, I've got my insurance. And so in that field, there's a lot of talk about preparing for if something not so good happens. And if you're an insurance professional, you've got to be able to do that. That's just part of your job to make sure people are being looked out for and their families and whatnot. So there can be a sense to focus on what we don't want to have happen. And I'm going to just suggest, and most of y'all feel free, and this is where I invite you also, please share what you know about this. You say, wait, no, I know some of this. Type it in the chat. This is not just me lording over the whole thing or any of the speakers. This is us sharing wisdom. So you say, oh, wait, well, I heard this speaker said this, or I say blah, blah, blah. Great. Please share that. But basically, what I want to do is focus on what you want to see happen. And so the first exercise, and again, it's in the book, but if you don't have the book up at the moment, or if you just want to kind of check in and use a pen and a piece of paper, is I want you to think about what have been the most important positive life experiences so far. And in the worksheet, there's room for 20 of them. You might not have time to do 20. Maybe just write down 5 now, or 3 to 5. What have been your most important life experiences? And I'm going to pause a second here and invite you to, for this particular exercise, because this is a really powerful one I found. Write down either 5 or 10 of those, just a word, whatever it is. So for me, definitely getting married, definitely I'd say having children, but my wife did most of the work, but us having children, starting my own business, being at the beach volleyball, at the beach playing volleyball on Fridays. Some of them are recurring things. There's memories I have from high school or college, or whatever it might be, but write down those things. And then next to that, which in this case is in the second column, I encourage you to indicate, did that happen in your work life or your personal life? And there's not a right answer, by the way, and this is not to shame anybody if you say, wait, all of my stuff happened in my work life or all my stuff happened in my personal life. Part of this is a self-awareness thing. And then the third part I'm going to pause on for now, this might be something for more after, where you put in where did that happen in your life, like friends or family or romance. There's a category section. But just in general, if you look at it, and I want you to consider, if you're good at math, you can do a percentage, or you can say 3 out of 5 or whatever it is. But I'm going to ask you to type in the chat, how many activities out of the total, so you might say, 4 out of 5 activities, Wade, or 1 out of 3. How many of the activities took place in your personal life? And I'd ask you to put that in the chat. So again, how many times, oh, Debbie, thank you so much for putting the link there to the workbook. The worksheet, just in the chat, if you look, Debbie just put it in the chat at the 10:14 timestamp. You can click on that, and that should do that. It's also available in the community. But I ask you to put in here, okay, and it could be, thank you, Michelle, could be just most of the activities happen in your personal life. So what I'm going to suggest to you, and again, other people, please keep commenting there, is that there's a couple different ways you can look at your lifespan. I look at my lifespan from a standpoint of, when do I get to do things that I want to do? Now, I want to be clear on this because I want to be precise in my definition of this. My father is from the islands. He's from Trinidad and Tobago, and he has an accent. And whenever I was growing up, he'd said, Wade, you only want to do what you want to do. And he says it much faster. So I'm like, Wade, you only want to do what you want to do. I'm like, well, yeah, why would I want to do what I don't want to do? But what he was saying is, well, Wade, you're almost, and this happens like some people, he said, Wade, sometimes you're not willing to do the work. You only want to do what you want to do. But I can tell you that in my work, while I don't always at every single living, breathing moment get to do what I want to do, thanks, love. Thank you very much, Michelle. I get to spend a lot of my time doing work I either like or love, am engaged by, and or work with awesome people, and or makes a lot of money, and something of that flavor. There's very few things I do that I just like hate. There's stuff I'd like to delegate and that sort of stuff, and sometimes I have the budget to, and sometimes I don't. But even in my work life, it carries over from my personal life that most of the time I'm engaged in something pretty close to what I want to do. My wife, I think she's watching right now, might be watching at some point. She's probably laughing right now because we sometimes get odds over that, because sometimes I can be a little self-centered in that because I am used to things going the way I like. So there can be a downside to that. But overall, most of the things in my life that happen that I've loved have been in my personal life. And so I first focused there and said, okay, I'm going to make sure I have enough time to enjoy my personal life. And I'm a math geek. So to me, if someone says to me, you know what, I only get 1 day off per week and I'm going to be working for 20 more years, I'd say, okay, great. If you get 2 days off per week, you double your free time. It's almost like you double your life, like your memory time. You're like the time when you're going to have your most fun memories. It's almost like you double your lifespan in the same amount of time. And, without running or any of that stuff. I don't like to run unless I'm chasing the ball. Well, it's a different story. And so if you can go from 2 days a week off to 3 days a week, it's like you're getting, again, another 1 day. So you're getting more choice time, more free time, more freedom time, whatever word you want to call it. And that's what so much of this is focused on. And Rennie, yes, you just nailed that. It's not, sometimes it's the wording as far as how we do things. It's looking at what do we want. So again, I want to see more. And when I first started out, I focused and branded this under 4-day work week. And a few people said to me, hey, you know what? Actually, I want the 3-day weekend. That's my most important part. So I don't not want to work. I do want more free time. And even when I started my 3-day weekend / 4-day work week journey, a lot of it was me looking to get away from work. And I wasn't making as much progress in work. I was having fun outside of work, but my work stagnated. Instead of me saying, you know what, when I'm at work, I want to be fully present. And when I'm outside, I want to be fully present. So what I would encourage you to do is, on this list of your most important life experiences, consider that we're going to look to see how we can free up more time for those things you've enjoyed most. And then the second part, and you're definitely, not going to have the time to put 50 of these here, but I want to encourage you to think about, and again, I'm using Friday as the anchor. I'm using Friday as an additional day off. So you might say, well, Wade, right now I work 6 days a week. I'd love to get to 5 days. Okay, well then maybe the Saturday is the day for you. But for me, when I say Friday, I'm meaning that extra day, that day that you don't normally have. So if you had Fridays off for the next 12 months, what would you do with those Fridays? And you don't have to come up with 50 ideas. And again, right now, I'll just suggest you put the activity, and I'm going to ask you to put at least one of those activities in the chat. Just what would that activity do? In my case, my answer is I'd be at the beach playing volleyball is my default answer for at least 2 to 3 out of 4 of those Fridays. And then some of the other Fridays be hanging out with my wife or with the kids, or if it's summer, different schedule with the kids and family, and maybe at the beach still too, or doing different things. What would you do with that Friday? Because this is going to be the anchor. This is going to be the fuel. This is going to be what we're moving towards, kind of like what Rennie mentioned in the chat of saying, okay, well, if I want to avoid work isn't going to get us there. I don't want to work 80 hours a week is a starting point but I do want to work 32 hours a week or 40 hours a week so I have time to enjoy my family and friends, is a much better way of doing things. And our mind, there's so much research on this, and Rennie's better at this than I am. I think Danny is too. So Danny, feel free to jump in as well. But just that idea of, again, looking to what we're moving towards. And so think about, what would you do with those extra Fridays? Because this is what I'm going to suggest you start putting into your agenda. And so as we move forward this, so already you might say, Wade, you're already talking about after the event, because events are awesome, and this event is awesome, and it's going to be awesome. But after this event, there's going to be tomorrow, and the next day, and the next day, and the next day. And for some people, if it's like a lot of events, you're going to say, oh, I had all this motivation, and then it tapered off. That's why we have the community part of this, where you can keep coming back. And in the community, there's a part of it that's focused on the 3-day weekend, what we're doing today, which is the free part of the community. And then there is a part, if you're looking on in the 4 days to make more money, and that stuff, where that's the paid part of the community for the entrepreneur and employees and whatnot, more of the make more money in less time, do what you do best, so you can help more people, that part. But in all of this, the goal somewhere in here, part of the goal is to create this life that we enjoy, that allows us to then come back on Monday excited and ready to work. And again, Monday in my scenario being that first day of the week. And so think about what you do. And I'd ask if you just take a moment, what's one activity that you do? Oh, Rennie, I love your list, man. Take long walks or jogging, writing more, reading more, being with a wife, sleeping on the beach. Oh, thank you for that, Rennie. Wow, I need to do that. And Danny, intentional about planning your week. Absolutely. And I encourage you, if you have children that are of a school age, I'd suggest that one of the things you do is also consider how you can carve out time for you that is only for you. And one of the worst mistakes I made as a father, it was made with a loving intention, but it was a tactical error. When we had our first child, for the first 6 years, I stopped playing my beach volleyball because I'm going to be the best dad I can. I'm going to put everything into being a dad. And, it was almost like, I don't know, being in high school and saying, I'm going to date one person, I'm going to forget all my friends, and I'm just going to put all my energy into that one relationship, which of course is just recipe for disaster. There's too much pressure on it, even if it's a great, healthy relationship, even if in this case as a father, that my intention was loving to say, I want to be the best dad I can. I lost a lot of balance. I became a grumpy guy, and that grumpy is a nice word. And so being able to have that, that time, that Friday for yourself, whether it's to run errands or do whatever it is, can be huge, so that you can then come back and be present. It might even be that Friday, sometimes I say Friday is my day, or maybe I haven't said that. I may haven't said that loud. So again, my wife would say, wait, you never said that. Well, I've said it to myself sometimes, but because I get to come back and be the guy that I need to be. And sometimes my family comes to the beach because they want to, sometimes they don't, and that's great. But so as you think about that, I'm going to pivot to 2 more things and bring them up. We're not going to get into them completely in this session, but then think about, what are those most desired life experiences you'd like to have? And so Myra, in the chat, you mentioned travel. So for example, it might be that one of the desired experiences is long travel. And it might be that, hey, you know what? 1 weekend per month, I go on a mini trip somewhere nearby. And so in this exercise, I'm going to suggest you write down some ideas in the black and white box area. And then below, make that list, or what are those things? Because, a couple pages back, we said, what have been your most important life experiences? And that's great. Using that information, that idea to say, okay, what's going to inform me? What would I like to see happen in the future? And what would I want to have happen? So that's driving the decisions, not just saying, well, oh, I used to be able to do this, or I used to do that, but making choices of where you're going. And in that conversation, I also encourage you, and this is something that comes with a combination of humility and just awareness. I don't know about you. I'm getting older. So I'm 49. There's stuff at least I can do it, but not as well as I used to, or I can't do, and stuff like that. So this idea, I'm going to suggest to you, it's an opinion, of waiting 5-10 years to then spend more time, to have more time off. You're missing out. Even if you say, but wait, I've got this big plan for my business. I'm going to make all this money. I've watched so many entrepreneurs make huge amounts of money towards the tail end of their career, just like in investments. That the investments that 8% or 10% growth, it explodes the last 3 to 5 years of an investment. And I know Rennie knows so much about that. We'll talk about in the podcast interview and I do. But every year you wait, there's less of that. So I want you to consider is you're probably going to have, if you're an entrepreneur or if you're moving in any way, a professional, you're moving in the right direction with your income and it's going up, it's going to continue going up. So, most things, for the most part, you're going to probably see that it trends up. There might be hiccups. And so you're going to have more income over time. So you're not going to be towards the end of your life saying, gosh, I wish I had even more income. If you take your journey seriously, more likely you're going to say, gosh, got plenty of income. And you're going to look back and you say, did I invest the time the way I wanted to with the people I cared about most? Did I enjoy that? Did I allow for that? And not in a way to beat yourself up, but to say, hey, you can do that. The only guaranteed investment I know of, only guaranteed return on investment being positive I know of, is investing time with people, with causes you believe in, with activities you love, that sort of stuff. Quality time, however you want to word that, that's guaranteed ROI. The other stuff, maybe it happens, maybe it doesn't. So I encourage you to look at that. And then finally, for this section, and again, something to complete outside of this, is to look at what are the obstacles, just to be aware of them, not to obsess on them, but just at least know, like, okay, this is going to happen. I might do this dance again. And these obstacles, hopefully you're going to put also a proposed solution to what you're going to do. And that solution, you're going to have a target date to say, okay, here's how I'm going to address that. And these are going to be some of the things I'm going to suggest. And we're going to follow up after this event with at least four coaching calls where we're going to go deeper into just the work that we did and follow up and, hey, how's it going? Just literally just checking in. And instead of this, which is a webinar, it's going to be a group call where people just come on and share, hey, wait, I'm doing this, or hey, community, I'm doing this. And everybody's going to share with each other who wants to and support each other in that. So I'm so grateful for you all being here, for you sharing what you're doing, and encourage you to think about, again, what is it you want to do, and start letting go of what's not a part of your vision.